Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lin. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. US President Donald Trump unveils sweeping tariffs, 35% on Canadian imports, up to 20% on global trade partners. Brazil says reciprocity law is ready to activate after 50% US tariff hike on Brazilian imports. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur. India tops global fast payment charts with UPI leading digital shift, says the IMF. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval lauds Operation Sindhur's precision and use of indigenous military hardware, urges youths to lead nation's progress. US President Donald Trump on Thursday announced a 35% tariff on imports from Canada next month, and he's planned to impose blanket tariffs of 15 to 20% on most other trade partners. In a letter released on his social media platform, Trump told Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney that the new rate would go into effect from August 1 and would go up if Canada retaliated. The new US tariff will apply to Canadian imports. President Trump said it was a response to Canadian retaliation and persistent trade barriers. In a letter released on Thursday evening, he accused Canada of failing to cooperate on major issues, especially the flow of fentanyl into the United States. President Trump linked Canada's role in the fentanyl trafficking to new tariffs, and he also warned of further duties if Ottawa retaliates. Now, Canada remains the US's second biggest trading partner and also the top buyer of American exports. The US has notified 22 nations of updated tariffs, including a 50% rate on Brazilian imports. Well, responding to the new tariff announcements from the United States, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said that his government will continue to defend Canadian workers and businesses in their negotiations with the United States as they work towards that deadline. In a social media post, Carney said that Canada is standing firm in trade talks with the US and will keep defending its workers ahead of the August 1 deadline. He highlighted Canada's efforts to fight fentanyl and its commitment to working with the US to protect communities. Carney also noted that progress is taking place in unifying the Canadian economy, launching major national projects, as well as expanding global trade ties. The Brazilian President, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, is rallying behind business leaders. This is to back his government. He's asking them to back his government if talks with the United States administration fails. Now, Lula has called the way the tariffs were announced disrespectful after US imposed 50% tariffs on imports from Brazil effective August 1. Further, Lula said, he could have called Brazil to tell about the measures he was going to take. He didn't even send a letter. We didn't receive a letter. He posted on his website a complete lack of respect, which is typical of his behavior towards everyone. And I'm not obligated to accept this disrespectful behavior between heads of state. Well, further, Lula also said that he was working to unite exporters of orange juice, steel, and aerospace to negotiate and find a resolution. Brazil produces nearly half of the world's Arabica coffee and is by far the world's largest orange juice producer, accounting for about 80% of global exports. I myself will seek new markets for Brazilian products.
Now, if you add all the indirect imports coming in from, let's say, China via Vietnam or China via Mexico, maybe we could get to a figure of 18% or so. Now, 18% reliance on imports is not small. And the biggest problem is going to be for the US going to be effect on consumer goods. Not so much capital goods, but the consumer goods almost entirely imported. Most foodstuffs you already mentioned, coffee and orange juice. In addition, if they push Canada to a corner, then Canada will have to be forced to retaliate, and that's not going to be good for either Canada or US. So I do believe it's giving a little window for Canada to
Right.
sort of
So,
wiggle out.
Professor Prant, why did the Trump ultimatum to work out trade deals fail? Was that 90-day time frame? I mean, I'm not talking only about Canada, but with the rest of the world as well.
Well,
Is
he's
that enough
giving
for
short
a tough
notice.
negotiation? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry. He was giving too short a notice. You see, for example, suppose he tells Canada, "I'm going to fix these tariffs." Now, Canada doesn't trade only with US; they trade with others too. They want to know what he's doing in other countries. For example, let's take a hypothetical example. Suppose today India decided that we will not do a trade deal. Let the US do what it wants. So, according to the reciprocal tariffs, we'll be hit by 26% tariff. Correct? Now, that is still lower than what the other countries are facing. So every country is worrying not only about US, but about what is their relative price position vis-a-vis other countries. So India would still be beneficial because the tariffs already announced on countries like Vietnam, etc., are much higher. So we would still have a relative price advantage. That does not mean demand will not fall because prices in the US will rise, but at least we have a relative price advantage in the US market. So everyone's waiting to see what is the final deal with the others. And that's how used to do in the WTO. Everyone came at one time and said, okay, this is your tariff, this is your tariff, this is your tariff. After 10 days of discussion, it was clear which tariff is applied to who, and all tariffs being MFN, everyone has the same tariff. So it was one way of settling the whole issue at one place. But Mr. Trump has gone back to the old US policy of actually deciding that I'm going to decide what the tariff should be. I'm going to decide what multilateral response should be. So it's difficult for any country to say, okay, we agree, because we don't
Yes.
know what he's going to agree with the other country. And so
Okay.
that's the reason why things are being so difficult. It's difficult to do bilateral tariffs and multilateral tariffs at the same time. But
So,
trade is determined by multilateral tariffs, not bilateral tariffs.
sure.
That's
Okay. But Professor Pant, now to what extent will the imposition of these tariffs affect the local governments? Do you see them being tested, for either submitting to the US or standing up to the US pressure?
See, I don't think, frankly, domestically, people really go in for these things, even the US. I think it's going to depend on how much the price tariffs affect the domestic prices. So we'll have to wait to see. Right now, nothing's going to happen because most countries and importers in the US and others have done preemptive imports. Import a whole lot of stuff. You've seen trade balance of India, zooming in the last couple of months. Everyone does preemptive purchase from the US, right? Or the US importers are purchasing preemptively before the tariffs come to face. We will not know, frankly, till the end of the year.
Okay.
Because I believe he's going to take August and he will move August a bit too, and then before the negotiation, he's sort of doing negotiations. The problem seems to be that we don't know what is his discussion. Is it only tariffs or the non-tariff issues involved? For example,
Okay.
in the case of Brazil, he's obviously at some point in time going to be very anti anyone who's negotiating Brazil because you have already shown on your TV that Silva has I've got my retaliation ready.
Right.
Countries who are announcing that we are ready to retaliate. He's going to make sure because a lot of this is personal. It's not really political. So at the
Okay.
moment it's difficult to say. Let me be very clear. If the tariff announcement that he says and the retaliation all happen, and that will be different from his previous term, 2016, certainly you will see prices going up globally because every
Okay.
country's imports will fall. If every country's imports fall, because everyone retaliating is everyone else, total global trade will fall, in which case total global individual country inflation will go up. And then you'll see the corrections happening in the case of exchanges. Where I think Mr. Trump is not very clear, or his economy is not clear, is the tariffs are a first off effect.
Okay.
Secondary effects, unlike 1930s, are felt through exchange rate changes. So you will see the exchange rates adjusting to what the tariffs are not doing.
Fine.
So the exchange rate changes are going to happen the rest of the year because they take time. And that no country has any impact on. That's a free market. So once we know what the final tariffs are going to be, bilaterally and therefore also unilaterally, then exchange rates and markets will respond, and then only we know. But certainly there will be an impact.
Okay, but in pure business terms, Professor Pant, and looking at the big picture which you've explained, will these measures help the U.S. economy, or are they going to lead to global trade realignment?
No, there will be a major global trade realignment if it goes through. And I'm still saying that I don't think his methods are with. It's not madness without any method. There is a method to what he's doing. And he's trying to fix it so that production starts in the US. I believe countries who show that we're going to invest something, they do something, will find most of these measures taken back. That's what my belief is. I don't think he wants inflation. Have you noticed even the immigration, illegal immigrants, he withdrew when he found it was affecting businesses like shops and farms in the south, which is constituency. So a lot of it is political. It's not entirely economic. So I believe economics will matter. But will the world be affected? Yes. For the next 4 or 5 months, certainly there's global untrade. No producer would want to buy or sell anything without knowing what is the price I'm going to contract. And that's going to affect every country. It's going to affect us. It's going to affect the US. It's going to affect Canada and everyone.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Manoj Pant, eminent economist, expert on international trade. Thank you for being with us. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Netanyahu says that Hamas will disarm and leave Gaza. Must, in fact, he says they must do that. The UK Prime Minister Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron, they agreed to tighten nuclear cooperation. And questions are being raised on delayed response of authorities to the Texas floods.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lin. Now, India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Pabitra Margarita, who is in Malaysia for the ASEAN-India Foreign Ministers meeting, met the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Cambodia, Prak Sokhonn. This happened on the sidelines of the summit. Both the leaders discussed multifaceted bilateral relations ranging from heritage conservation to development partnership. The minister also discussed about his recent visit to Phnom Penh, during which he had a number of productive engagements. He thanked Cambodia for its support towards India's fight against terrorism. The Minister of State, Margarita, also met the Foreign Minister of Timor-Leste, Bendito Freitas. This also happened on the margins of the ASEAN-India Foreign Ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur today. The leaders discussed the ongoing bilateral cooperation for further strengthening the Delhi partnership. The minister, in fact, thanked Timor-Leste for its solidarity with India's fight against terrorism. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, met his Chinese counterpart, Wang on Friday, on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. Now, this was the first in-person meeting between the two leaders since President Donald Trump's return to office. The meeting is happening amid escalating friction globally over Trump's trade policies, with China this week warning the United States against reinstating hefty levies on its goods next month. Beijing also has threatened, in fact, to retaliate against nations that strike deals with the United States to cut China out of supply chains. Marco Rubio also engaged in an informal chat with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. This happened also at the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur. Both leaders were in attendance for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers East Asia Summit, which also saw representatives from countries including Japan, South Korea, Australia and China, among others. The interaction between the two diplomats followed their 50-minute bilateral meeting in Kuala Lumpur on Thursday. And during the East Asia Summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's Foreign Minister Hassan, he highlighted the cooperation between ASEAN and East Asian partner countries to weather economic and geopolitical storms. He said that global and regional dynamics are shifting rapidly, testing the strength of their resolve.
2 decades later, the East Asia Summit stands more relevant and vital than ever. Today's world faces a complex web of crises that jeopardize global peace, shared prosperity, and well-being of people everywhere. From the outbreak of conflicts and rising great power competition to economic fragmentation, rapid technological shifts, and transnational security threats. These global and regional dynamics are shifting rapidly, testing the strength of our resolve and institutions to the clarity of our wisdom and the resilience of our cooperation.
Britain reached an agreement with France on a pilot program to return migrants arriving in small boats on Thursday. At a joint press conference, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron, they announced a one-in, one-out migrant return scheme where UK would send undocumented migrants back to France in exchange for accepting an equal number of legitimate asylum seekers with UK family ties. After hosting Macron for a 3-day visit, Starmer received a significant boost when Macron announced France's agreement to the migrant return scheme. Over 21,000 people have arrived on small boats so far in 2025.
So I'm pleased to announce our agreement today on a groundbreaking returns pilot. For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks, and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally.
Further, in a landmark move, the UK Prime Minister Starmer and the French President Macron took a key step to underpin Europe's security by agreeing to tighten nuclear cooperation as the region frets over the US commitment to its defense and Russian ambitions. In targeting a reboot of defense ties with a focus on joint missile development and nuclear cooperation, while also firming up support for Ukraine in its war with Russia, Europe's two nuclear powers also hope to send a strong message to Moscow. Israel is ready to negotiate a lasting deal with Hamas to end the Gaza conflict when a temporary halt to hostilities begin. Efforts to secure a 60-day halt in the 21-month war have dominated Netanyahu's talks with the US President Donald Trump in Washington. Indirect negotiations have been taking place between the two sides in Qatar, and Hamas has agreed to free 10 of the 20 hostages still alive in captivity since October 7, 2023 attack, which has sparked the conflict. During a video message from Washington, Netanyahu said that the choice of which hostages will be released in the proposed 60-day ceasefire deal is not in their hands.
אני אומר את זה, אנחנו עוסקים מול ארגון טרור אכזרי.
We are dealing with a ruthless terror organization. Obviously, we would like to rescue all of the hostages, and from our point of view, all of them are humanitarian. I want to rescue all of them in one go. We are dealing with 2 stages, but the choice is not always in our hands. We will do everything in order to maximize the number of those released in this round in the best way possible. Not everything is in our hands.
לא הכל בידינו.
Thousands of first responders continued searching through thick, mud-covered debris in Texas Hill Country on Thursday, holding out hope of finding survivors 6 days after flash floods devastated the region and left at least 120 people dead. In this tragedy, questions are being raised as well on the delayed response of the Texan authorities that could have saved more lives. Here's the report.
In a catastrophe beyond imagination, more than 120 lives were lost, including dozens of children. Over 170 are still missing, all swept away in the dead of the night. But what still lingers is the exasperation of the families and some questions on whether victims had any warning at all. With US President Donald Trump preparing to visit the disaster zone on Friday with First Lady Melania Trump, new questions have emerged about critical funding that was slashed from emergency preparedness programs. Critics say Trump-era cuts to FEMA and early alert systems left counties like Kerr dangerously exposed, and it was a disaster waiting to happen. Kerr County was the tragedy's epicenter. Kerrville police deflected a question about police radios being unable to communicate with county and emergency officials, hampering rescue efforts as the flood raged.
So I suspect the folks did their job, but I don't know under what circumstances or conditions. A lot of the weather forecast offices now are not operating at full complement of staff, which means that you're really putting an extra burden on these folks.
Local news networks claim that at 4:22 a.m. on July 4th, Kerr County Sheriff's Office got a message from a firefighter upstream to alert residents of the coming flood. The first alert did not reach Kerr County's Code Red system for a full 90 minutes. The delay has raised multiple questions, many which the officials will find hard to answer. Bureau Report, DD India.
And let's take a look at other stories making news from around the world. Dozens of crashed highway patrol vehicles used to secure traffic lanes are on display at a motorway service area to raise drivers' awareness of road safety. In 2024 alone, there were 143 accidents, 13 injuries and 2 fatal incidents. The prevention campaign urges motorists to avoid using their mobile phones and to ensure that they are well rested before embarking on long summer journeys. 5 people were injured on the 5th day of the running of the Bulls of Pamplona's San Fernan Festival. Now, thousands of tourists come from all over the world to run alongside locals over 7 days, making the San Fernan the most famous of the festivals involving bulls that take place across Spain during the summer months. Los Angeles rolled out the red carpet for some 4-legged heroes as a group of super pups arrived for a special screening of Superman. The event, held at a theater, celebrated both the iconic superhero and the real-life canine companions who serve in rescue and service roles. Dressed in tiny capes, the superhero gear, the dogs stole the spotlight, deservedly so, delighting attendees and fans. A new trailer of the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants, released on Wednesday, and it unveils SpongeBob's thrilling journey to the underworld. The 4th animated film, based on the iconic SpongeBob SquarePants series, features SpongeBob, voiced by Tom Kenny, facing off against the Flying Dutchman, played by Mark Hamill. Now, the returning voice actors include Clancy Brown, Bill Fagerback, Roger Pampas, and Mr. Lawrence, newcomers Regina Hall and rapper Ice Spice. They've joined the cast, adding fresh flair. Directed by Derek Dryman, the comedy adventure, it promises vibrant animation and humor. The film is slated for global release in December of this year, hitting theaters in the United States on the 19th of December and the UK on the 26th of December. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. We'll get an expert view on India's Unified Payments Interface, which has been hailed by the IMF. The comedian Kapil Sharma's new restaurant in Canada comes under gunfire. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main news. US President Trump unveils sweeping tariffs, 35% on Canadian imports, up to 20% for global trade partners. Brazil says reciprocity law is ready to activate after 50% US tariff hike on Brazilian imports. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets his Chinese counterpart Wang on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval lauds Operation Sindhur's precision and use of indigenous military hardware, urges youth to lead nation's progress. Well, India has emerged as the global leader in fast payments driven by the Unified Payments Interface, according to a report by the IMF titled Growing Retail Digital Payments, the Value of Interoperability. Now, this report highlights the UPI's role in reducing cash usage as well as declining debit credit card transactions since its 2016 launch. The IMF, in its FinTech note, had pointed out that India now makes the fastest payments of any country, and the credit of this goes entirely to the UPI. The UPI, which was developed by the NPCI, processes over 18 billion transactions monthly, making it the world's largest retail fast payment system. The IMF notes that interoperability boosts digital payment adoption, with ATM withdrawal data showing a shift from cash to interoperable districts. The report recommends monitoring dominant players to ensure market competition and fostering inclusive dialogue with private sector participants. In June 2025, UPI recorded 18.4 billion transactions, and they were worth a whopping 24.04 trillion rupees. This, in fact, is a slight monthly decline, but significantly, it's showing yearly growth, reinforcing India's digital payment dominance. We're happy to have with us Dr. Charan Singh, eminent economist, who's a well-known banking expert. Thank you, sir, for being with us. You know what, when you were involved with the banking sector more closely, obviously there was a lot of computerization and things taking place. But now, I mean, look at the kind of infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure is required to handle this kind of volume of digital transactions, 18 billion transactions monthly?
This is amazing. Amazing figures that you have just been saying. And the IMF has come out with that study, and we in our own country, especially in the RBI Bulletin annual report, we have been talking about the UPI and the payment mechanism that has been adopted under the digital infrastructure. Just imagine in June 2016 when we started, only 21 banks, financial institutions were involved. We have more than 620 now. As you mentioned, the transactions, 18 billion transactions in June 25. And if you look at June 16 when we started, they were 0.1, that's all, 0.1 billion. And if you look at the amount that is involved, as you mentioned, 24 lakh crore, and at that time it was 0.38 crores. That's all.
Indeed.
Now, given this situation, the multiple times all this has happened is amazing. The credit goes, of course, to the technology, and I would say the starting point goes to the Jan Dhan Yojana. When you have so many accounts available to you, and they get connected through the mobile network, so technology and the accounts come together, and then know your customer through the Aadhaar card system, the JAM Trinity played a very important role. Now data is available, accounts are available, and therefore the cost of transaction or cost of data immediately comes down. This changed the whole scenario. I must share this with you, Mark. When the studies on financial inclusion were done in the Reserve Bank of India in 2007, 8 and 9, I was there. We were surprised to see that in rest of the world also there is financial inclusion problem, not only in India. And therefore now I think with the IMF acknowledging the technology that we have, the way we have handled people on the street using UPI through the QR code and the sound system which says how much has been transacted, which builds trust in everybody's mind, the user and the person who's paying.
Yes.
This will revolutionize the financial inclusion in the rest of the world too.
Absolutely.
As you must have noticed,
Indeed.
many countries already have UPI, and I think this is going to happen now in a bigger way, even in advanced countries, because even in UK, USA, when we were doing the studies at that time, suffered from financial exclusion. And
Okay.
what we have done through UPI, we have brought the whole set of people, that segment, which was even scared of keeping cash in their pocket because in the
Right.
night they would be robbed. Though that segment has been brought into the formal banking system, I think it's amazing.
So you've talked, Professor Charan Singh, about financial inclusion, really for the common man. But you know, not everyone has a smartphone, a 5G, high quality phones. So how scalable is UPI, you know, for the common man, really?
No, I give you an illustration that this financial inclusion really made a very big difference because the number of accounts came in. But you could do the UPI transaction through any technology mode. You will be also surprised. You mentioned that I was associated with the banking industry for a long time, first in the Reserve Bank and then, of course, with a commercial bank. We were all emphasizing ATMs. And now the number of transactions or visits to the ATMs have come down dramatically from 16 to 8. So that means people are able to use any mode for payment, just not the smartphone. Also, if you look at the other side, the cash transactions, the study which you are referring to, the IMF study, comes out with very good statistics. Cash per capita. Now in 2019, the volume of transactions which people used to do in cash per capita was 7. And now what they're doing is just 4. So that means that the dominance of cash in terms of volume of transactions, even otherwise, the dominance of cash is coming down. So to my mind, the technology interface has really helped commerce to grow, has also helped in formalization of the economy, because we
Right.
were always worried at the informal segment of the economy not getting captured. It has helped in formalization of the economy, and this is happening through various mechanisms.
Indeed. Professor Charan Singh, so you did mention about how the people are using the ATMs less, but they are also necessarily using debit and credit cards less because of the convenience of the smartphone. So what's the next, for the UPI on a global scale? You also alluded to this in your first answer.
Yes, of course. On the global scale, I think the digital diplomacy is going to expand. And India's UPI is going to become the buzzword in even advanced countries, not just the Latin American or African countries. Of course, Prime Minister did that agreement in Trinidad and Tobago. That's of course, and many other African countries, Latin American countries would love to have something like this because financial exclusion happens in those countries also. But even in advanced countries like America, UK, where I mentioned Australia, there are people who are excluded from the formal financial markets. So, to my mind, the UPI will be a great selling point in all these countries. So, in a way, it gives us an edge on technology. But I must also share this with you. And this is very important. This didn't happen overnight. And this didn't happen just by accident. The Reserve Bank, and of course the blessing of the government, because the public sector banks played a very important role in adopting technology in a very big way. It started from the handheld devices. We started way back in 2006 and 7. We shifted to core banking. And once we had connected the banking network across the country, we were then able to take the plunge or the leap where now you find the digital infrastructure providing all the payment mechanism, seamless payment mechanism that you are seeing. Of course, when I speak about the financial inclusion and lower segment of the economy, which was not really getting captured earlier, I don't mean it's only beneficial to them. It's of course beneficial to the larger segment of the economy also. You and me conducting transactions at speed of light.
Yes.
The businesses are benefiting. Commerce and trade in the country is benefiting. The tax department is benefiting because they can trail the money transaction that is taking place. So
Indeed.
overall, in the whole economy, everybody is reaping the benefit of the UPI. And you must have read in that report, they referred to it about the interoperability, because now through the government, the RBI encouraged interoperability. So therefore, one thing which the rest of the world will have to learn, and the report is also recommending that interoperability will become very, very important. So technologically, at one single interface, if the user and the receiver and the payer and their banks speak to each other, the transaction happens seamlessly within seconds. I think
Okay.
that is the fintech has played an important role. Simultaneously, the sandbox which the Reserve Bank had created for the fintech about 4 or 5 years ago, this is the result of all those efforts coming together.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Charan Singh, eminent economist, expert on the banking sector, for bringing your vast experience and helping us to understand this a little better. Thank you, sir. Now, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has slammed the foreign media for their reportage. This is on Operation Sindoor. And he also confirmed that India successfully hit 13 Pakistani air bases during the operation. He was addressing the 62nd convocation day of IIT Madras on Friday. Highlighting the significant role of the youth, he said that as a nation, India faces serious challenges, and it is the responsibility of the youth to find solutions. He emphasized also the need to develop indigenous technologies to transform India into a developed nation. Doval said that he was proud of Operation Sindoor on the usage of indigenous content from BrahMos to radars as India hit the terror targets in Pakistan precisely to the point. Dismissing claims to the contrary by foreign media, he asked if there was any imagery of any damage to Indian assets or military installations.
Foreign press and all these things, they said Pakistan did that and this. You tell me one photograph, one imagery. These days, these imageries are from the satellites all over the world. They are this thing, which shows any Indian damage being done, even a glass pane having been torn. They brought out photographs, they wrote this thing, the New York Times put out this thing. Only imagery, they said 13 air bases before 10th May and after 10th May. Whether it was in Sargodha, or it was in Rahim Yar Khan, or it was in Chaklala.
Well, the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, has successfully coordinated the return of Kubawala Mustafa from the UAE through Interpol channels. Kubawala Mustafa was wanted for running a synthetic drug factory from abroad. He is accused of manufacturing mephedrone, a party drug, at a facility in Sangli and Maharashtra, and allegedly supplied raw materials and distributed the drug in Gujarat. A 4-member team of Mumbai police went to Dubai, the UAE, on July 7 to bring back the subject, Kubawala Mustafa. The Indian comedian Kapil Sharma's newly launched restaurant Caps Cafe in Surrey in Canada came under gunfire late on Wednesday night. The preliminary reports indicate that multiple rounds were fired at the premises. In fact, there were no injuries reported. Authorities swiftly sealed off the area and an investigation is currently underway. The cafe had only recently opened and was quickly becoming a popular spot among the Indian diaspora in Canada. And DD India correspondent Tarun Paul Singh sent us this report from Canada.
Thank you so much. But the thing is that the Surrey police has issued some statement in regarding to it. They have mentioned that the Surrey police said that they were called to a business on around 8400 block of 120 Street at about 1:50 a.m. on Thursday. The staff said that employee of Caps Cafe was still in the restaurant when the shot was fired, but no one was injured. Anytime there are any gunshots, bullets being fired, people are risked being shot, according to the statement which has been given to by them. They also mentioned that, and they were fortunate that no one was injured or hit by a bullet or sharpened in this case from shots being fired. The windows of the cafe was riddled with numerous holes, with some panels shattered. No one at the restaurant picked up when the call was called for a comments or anything. Extremism which has been called for, but nothing has been told by the Canadian government or by the Surrey government till now. No updates has been given by the Surrey police or anyone in regards to it. Whether somebody was involved or something like they just have given this normal statement about the incident which has happened, and nothing has been taken into casualties or detail has been given by the Surrey police in regards to it.
What's still to come here on DD India News Hour? The England batter Joe Root is one short of his 37th Test 100. A blockbuster contest awaits us at Wimbledon as the world #1 Yannick Sinner faces the aging greatest of all time, Novak Djokovic, in the semi-finals. The holy month of Sawan in the Hindu calendar begins.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. In a major step towards safeguarding India's digital future, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, CERT-IN is what it's called, and CISA, they have unveiled a white paper transitioning to quantum cyber readiness. This happened in New Delhi. The Secretary of the Ministry, S. Krishnan, said that he's called quantum readiness a strategic imperative.
Some of the work that has already started and is going on at various levels within the government and amongst various organizations towards getting ready for a quantum world. I think the National Quantum Mission was launched about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and there's a lot of work going on there. The significance of this event today is also that it represents a public-private partnership. In addition to CERT-IN, we also have CISA, who has joined us in bringing out this paper and spreading the awareness of the quantum threat and making sure that there is more preparedness for this threat is an important objective of what this paper does. Not only is it a public-private partnership, it is a public-private partnership between an Indian entity and what is happening here.
And echoing this, CISA CEO Darshan Shantamurthy said that CISA and CERTIN's combined expertise offers a holistic strategy to protect India's digital ecosystem. The white paper aims to guide organizations in beginning their quantum-safe migration and preparing for the next era of cybersecurity.
Very much. I think one of the key things is what the industry is looking for is guidance on how we need to prepare against quantum security threats. And this white paper is a seminal paper in that direction, which will lay a path for Indian organizations to follow and prepare themselves for the quantum world. So one is on the quantum side. I think there's a lot of innovation that is happening thanks to the quantum mission. On the quantum security side, in the post-quantum cryptography and those kinds of aspects, I think there's a lot of work that is being done too. And companies like CISA, which is also pioneering in quantum security, we are doing our level to actually make sure that we are ready for the PQ, for the post-quantum world. We are looking to partner with global organizations, other countries, and then see how we can share our knowledge in the deep tech cybersecurity space.
Well, artificial intelligence is generally seen as perhaps the most important future technology available. But, not everyone is taking to it easily. In fact, in Switzerland, bookstores are protesting an AI-written children's book. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle. He joins me now from Berlin. Lars, what's the deal with this book?
Thanks for having me. Well, there's a number of things going on here that don't seem well thought out. Let's start at the beginning. Swiss communication giant Swisscom had this marketing campaign focusing on AI, and as part of their efforts to inform about the technology, they had an artificial intelligence write a kid's book. It's called The Monster Princess. It's the story of young Princess Mia who wants to be a monster, and one night she's secretly leaving her castle. It's a cute but unremarkable story. There's cute drawings too, also generated by AI. Now, they could have seen some trouble coming because having an AI write kids' bedtime stories just sounds wrong right off the bat. And even pediatricians have long warned that the way AI might influence kids and their development might be problematic. Well, there's more. Swisscom is handing out the books for free now in their stores, which angered bookstores, as it obviously cuts into their market.
Indeed, Lars, but, is this an isolated case, or will we be seeing bigger problems with such books in the future?
We will see bigger problems for sure, because it's not just about who's writing books and the fact that AI can technically churn out books faster than any human author. AI can illustrate them faster, and it's all cheaper too. So that's a massive problem for authors. But even worse, authors have previously argued that artificial intelligence is, of course, not per se intelligent, and it is definitely not creative. So how can it write or illustrate a book? Obviously, it works off data it has been fed, and that data would be, for example, children's books written by real human authors and illustrated by real human illustrators. Their work should technically be copyrighted. As a matter of fact, it usually is. But apparently such work now gets fed into AI programs, and these programs then churn out and possibly at some point sell books that they couldn't have written without that help.
Well, Lars Holter, thank you very much for that interesting input. Now, moving on, in sports, the England batter Joe Root, he needs just one run to complete a century against India. This is the second test, on the second day of the third test at Lord's on Friday. This would be his 37th test 100 if he reaches there, which is, and he will be scoring his 8th century at Lord's. Of course, he's an Englishman, so he plays at Lord's much more often than everybody else. But the hosts will resume the day on 251 runs for the loss of 4 wickets, as Root's unbeaten 99 checked the visitors' progress on the opening day of the match. The England captain Ben Stokes is also on 39 not out, and the two have added 79 runs for the 5th wicket. Root came into bat when England were 44 runs for the loss of 2 wickets. Nitish Kumar Reddy had struck twice in his first over to remove the openers Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley. Root shared a grinding partnership of 109 runs with Ollie Pope to bail the team out of trouble. The seven-time Wimbledon champion Novak Djokovic bids for Grand Slam history when he faces world number one Jannik Sinner in the semi-final on Friday, while the defending champion Carlos Alcaraz takes on the fifth seed Taylor Fritz. Djokovic believes his best chance to win a record 25th Grand Slam title lies at the All England club. Djokovic aims to reach an 11th Wimbledon final. Back to his best after a spluttering start to the tournament, Carlos Alcaraz must subdue the power game of the big serving Taylor Fritz to reach his third successive Wimbledon final. The world number 2 is contesting his 8th Grand Slam semi-final. The month of Sawan has begun, marking the start of the spiritually significant period in the Hindu calendar. It is dedicated to Lord Shiva, is marked by devotion, fasting, prayers, especially on Mondays called Sawan Somvar. And across northern and central India, devotees visit temples early, offering milk and carrying decorated carvers filled with holy water, holy Ganga water, to the shrines. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app, available on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.